The ultimate brisk called Nibbana revealed to the world by the Buddha for 45 years is referred to in the Buddha's first sermon called Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta as Dukkha Nirodha. It's called a noble truth, Arya Satya. Dukkha Arya Satya. It's called noble because one who has realized this state of mind called dukkha get enlightened. Enlightened ones are called noble sons, Arya Puggala in Pali. Enlightenment means the dawn of light. In the first sermon, he referred to this dawn of light as Aloko Udapadi. Metaphorically, it means the dispelling of darkness. Metaphorically, darkness means the ignorance of the reality of things and beings, or the ignorance of the reality or the truth of things and beings. Once one realizes the real nature of things and beings, the process called thinking ceases. By the word dukkha, the Arya Satya, the noble truth called dukkha, is defined by the Buddha in his very first sermon of Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, saying, Sankittena panchupadanakkhandha dukkha. Upadanakkhandha means 5 mental magnetic elements. 5-fold magnetic elements are the 5-fold activities that form a thought. They are called Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana. There are 5 steps in the process of a thought, a single thought. Thinking means a creation of a series of thoughts. That is thinking. Therefore, ultimately, what the Buddha called dukkha, translated into English as suffering, is thinking. The ultimate bliss is the cessation of thinking. Cessation of thinking get manifested with the annihilation of the causes of thinking. The causes of thinking Buddha referred to as liking, disliking and ignorance of the reality that lead to liking and disliking of things and beings that are manifested in our thoughts, in our thinking, in our mental screen. The forms manifested in our mental screens are sometimes pleasant or unpleasant, or sometimes we can understand the reality. The inability to understanding, as I mentioned earlier, is called ignorance, or in Pali word moha. Liking is called raga, disliking is called dosa. They are the outcome of our mental thoughts called tanha. Tanha is a Pali word referring to the root cause of dukkha, the root cause of thinking. The tanha is a Pali word derived from the Sanskrit called trishna. In Sanskrit, trishna means mental thirst. But in Pali, tanha means, trishna means thirst, physical thirst. The Pali word tanha means mental thirst. Here thirst means the thirst for sensory pleasures. The basic thirst called tanha is called kama tanha. Kama means sensory pleasures. Thirst for sensory pleasures. And this thirst has a positive aspect and a negative aspect. The positive aspect is called bhavatanha. Bhava means to be or to get manifested. The mind has a thirst for the manifestation of the forms of sensory pleasures that the mind likes. And negative aspect is the mind dislikes the forms, the mental forms or images that are unpleasant. Therefore, the kama-tanha, the sensory pleasure, the thirst for sensory pleasure, has a positive aspect called bhavatanha, manifestation of the pleasant forms. And the other negative aspect is the non-manifestation of unpleasant forms. The mind gets attached to the pleasant forms, mental images, and resent the unpleasant forms. The thirst for manifestation of pleasant forms is called bhavatanha, as I mentioned earlier, and non-manifestation, the negative aspect, is called vibhavatanha. In generally, the mind likes pleasant mental images and dislike unpleasant mental images. In short, mind likes pleasant sensation and dislike unpleasant sensation. Sensation is the mind becoming aware of mental images. In fact, according to the Rohita Sutta, Buddha said, the entire world that we experience is not outside us, but within our own body, that get manifested in our mental screen called mind. Because we know the world outside, the physical world outside, through our sense organs. And all our sense organs are incapable of knowing the actual reality of things and beings outside us. And what we can become aware of is only the formation in our mental screen called mind. And thirst for pleasant experiences, mental experiences are called kama-tanha, the thirst for that, and the thirst for pleasant mental forms is called bhavatanha, and thirst for the non-manifestation of unpleasant forms is called vibhavatanha. At the root, the mental thirst is a form of mental magnetism. Mental magnetism is referred to in the Buddha's word as kama. And through magnetism has two aspects, attraction and repulsion. The mind gets attached to certain forms and resents certain other forms. Kama chanda in Pali means selection of pleasant forms, pleasant mental forms, rejecting the unpleasant mental forms. This kama chanda, this mental activity, magnetism is called kama. The initial activity is called kama chanda, selecting the pleasant forms. And the attachment to pleasant forms is called raga. Once you get attached to certain forms, the mind wants its continuation, not only the present but also in the future. It is dragging the unborn present into the present, unborn future into the living present. And that is called lobha, mental attraction. And reject the unpleasant form, that is called dosa. The mental state called lobha, attracting or attraction of pleasant forms, leads to getting absorbed in them, getting addicted to them. That is called gijja. We get addicted to certain pleasant experiences and get addicted to resenting unpleasant experiences. Macharya means one that is state of a miser, miserliness. We become a miser, getting too much attached to present forms and the desire to protect them even without using them. That's called macharya. As the mind wants to preserve pleasant forms, pleasant experiences, obstacles to such preservation is resented. And that resentment is called dosa in Pali and dvesha in Sanskrit. And these three mental activities are based on the root cause called tanha, the mental thirst, which has a positive as called bhavatanha. There is thirst for the manifestation of present experiences, and vibhavatanha, the negative thirst for the non-manifestation of unpleasant forms. But basically, the root is the attachment to pleasant forms. Pleasant forms are called fear. It is according to the Piyavagga in the Dhammapada, getting attached to present forms is the root cause of all our mental suffering called soka, and all our fears called bhaya. In this Piyavagga Jayati, Piyavagga of Dhammapada, Buddha has declared, Piyato Jayati Soko, Piyato Jayati Bhaya. It is our attachment to the present objects that leads to our sorrows and fears. Fears means we fear losing them. We want to preserve it. And to preserve it, that, as I mentioned earlier, the desire for preserving is called macharya. And the macharya happens after getting addicted to present forms. That is called gijju. Youngsters get addicted to drugs. Some get addicted to alcohol. That means whatever that gives pleasant experience turns into one's own addiction. And this addiction, there are two extremes. Addiction to the present, that is attachment to the present, and resentment of the unpleasant. It is because of this attachment and resentment the mind starts thinking. And Buddha referred to, as I mentioned earlier, thinking is the source of suffering. And supreme bliss is the ending of this suffering called thinking, cessation of thinking. Thinking caused by, initially, the mental thirst, the mental magnetic thirst. Thirst for pleasant experiences called kamatanha, sensual experiences, thirst for sensual experiences. The thirst for pleasant experiences are called bhavatanha. The thirst for unpleasant cessation of or annihilation or non-availability of unpleasant experience is called vibhavatanha. Altogether, thirst for sensual pleasures is the root cause of all our suffering. Therefore, ending of suffering or the supreme bliss is the cessation of the mental thought called tanha. That is why the Nibbana is called tanhakaya. Nibbana is a word that says ni means no, bana means bondage, not being bound to the present, not being bound to anything. There is the emancipation. Being bound means, as I mentioned, imprisoned. Imprisonment is called rodha in Pali, and escape from or freedom from the prison is called nirodha. Therefore, the bliss of emancipation from the imprisonment called thinking is called dukkha nirodha in the Buddha's language. And this escape is possible with the cessation of the root of thinking, which Buddha referred to as tanha, the mental thirst caused by mental magnetism. These experiences are mental. Therefore, one can eradicate mental thirst by being aware of the activities of the mental thirst in different forms. It starts with kama, mental magnetism, kama chanda, selecting the present objects, mental objects, raga, getting attached to those objects, gijja, getting addicted through repeated attachment, and becoming a miser, thinking of preservation, that is called macharya, and obstacles to preservation of the present is referred to as resentment or dosa in Pali and dvesha in Sanskrit. It is this mental magnetic activity of attraction and repulsion that lead to all our mental suffering, which we can realize through observation of our own mind, through observation of the activities of our own mind. And that is Buddhist meditation.